Have you ever found yourself feeling abandoned, disconnected, or alone, even when surrounded by people? Have you wondered why, despite being in the midst of activity, your soul still yearns for something deeper, something more? This paradox of feeling isolated, even in the presence of others, is not uncommon. But there is a profound spiritual truth that underlies these experiences. Isolation, particularly divine isolation, is not a mere consequence of circumstances. Rather, it is a purposeful divine strategy designed for spiritual growth, empowerment, and preparation. It is during these periods of seeming solitude that individuals are often transformed, strengthened, and equipped for greater purposes. But how does this process unfold? And what role does divine isolation play in one's spiritual journey? Understanding isolation and loneliness before delving into the deeper meaning of divine isolation, it's crucial to understand the distinction between isolation and loneliness. Loneliness is often perceived as a painful state of emotional emptiness that can occur even when surrounded by others. It stems from a sense of disconnection, a longing for meaningful companionship or a deeper connection. Isolation, on the other hand, is different. While it may involve physical separation, it carries a deeper divine purpose. Divine isolation is not about neglect or punishment. It is a strategic and intentional phase designed by God to prepare an individual for spiritual growth, empowerment, and greater responsibilities. It's a sacred time of introspection, where one is drawn away from the distractions of the world to focus entirely on their relationship with God. This period allows for the unveiling of hidden strengths, resilience, and an unwavering dependence on divine guidance. Far from being a period of punishment, it is an opportunity for spiritual transformation and clarity of purpose. The purpose of divine isolation: why would God choose to isolate individuals for a season? What purpose does this period serve in the broader narrative of one's life? The purpose of divine isolation is multifaceted. First and foremost, it provides the space for introspection, a time to step away from the noise of the world and tune into the still, small voice of God. In these quiet moments, individuals are able to forge a deeper connection with their Creator, reflecting on their life's journey and purpose. Divine isolation is also a tool for revealing inner strength. Often, it is only in solitude that one discovers hidden qualities such as resilience, endurance, and the ability to stand firm in the face of adversity. These qualities are necessary for the challenges that lie ahead. Additionally, isolation serves to detach individuals from reliance on worldly structures and people, redirecting their trust and dependence solely on God's guidance. It's a humbling experience, one that allows individuals to rely on divine wisdom rather than the validation or approval of others. Biblical examples of isolation throughout the Bible. We see many examples of individuals who underwent periods of divine isolation, each serving as a preparation for a greater purpose. These examples remind us that isolation is not a punishment, but rather a preparation for something greater. 1. Abraham's call. God called Abraham out of his homeland and family, promising that through him, all nations would be blessed. This isolation was not just a physical separation. It was a spiritual preparation that set the foundation for Abraham's faith journey and the future of the nation of Israel. 2. Moses spent 40 years in the Midian desert, far from the palace where he was once raised. During this time of isolation, God was preparing him for the monumental task of leading the Israelites out of Egypt. This period allowed Moses to grow in wisdom, patience, and leadership, qualities essential for the mission ahead. 3. Elijah at Cherith. Elijah was isolated at the brook Cherith, where he was fed by ravens and sustained through divine provision. This time of solitude prepared him for the challenges he would face as a prophet, reinforcing his trust in God's provision and strengthening his resolve to confront the powers that opposed him. 4. David's trials. After his anointing as king, David spent many years in hiding, facing great adversity and isolation. During this time, he composed the Psalms, which reflect his spiritual journey. His time of isolation honed his character, shaping him into a man of faith who would eventually rise to lead the nation of Israel. 5. Paul's transformation. After his encounter with Jesus, Paul spent a period of isolation, during which he experienced profound transformation. This period allowed him to grow into the apostle who would go on to spread the message of Christ and establish churches across the ancient world. Phases of divine isolation is not a static experience. It unfolds in phases, each with its own purpose and significance. The preparation phase. The first phase of divine isolation is the preparation stage. This is when God sets individuals apart for great works, equipping them with the strength, skills, and spiritual discernment necessary to fulfill their purpose. It is during this phase that one may feel the initial stirrings of divine calling, a sense that they are being drawn into something bigger than themselves. 2. The training phase. Once prepared, individuals enter the training phase, where they are challenged to overcome obstacles that build character. Think of David's battles with Goliath and wild beasts. These trials were not mere tests of strength. They were transformative moments that shaped David into a leader capable of leading a nation. During the training phase, individuals are refined, learning the value of persistence, faith, and courage in the face of adversity. 3. The transformation phase. The final phase of divine isolation is the transformation stage. In this phase, God aligns the individual's desires with His will, refining their heart and mind. The transformation phase changes one's emotional and spiritual makeup, preparing them to step into a role of leadership, influence, and service. The desires that once seemed important become secondary to the divine purpose that now drives the individual's life. Elevation through isolation. Divine isolation is not simply about preparation, it is also about elevation. Through isolation, individuals are often elevated to positions of greater influence and responsibility. Joseph, for example, was isolated in a prison before being elevated to the position of governor of Egypt, where he would eventually save his family and countless others from famine. Moses, too, was isolated in the desert before rising to become the leader of the Israelites. In both cases, isolation served as the crucible that refined their character, enabling them to rise to positions of power and influence that would have been impossible without the divine preparation they received in solitude. The impact of isolation. What lasting impact does isolation have on an individual's life? Isolation equips individuals with wisdom, resilience, and spiritual clarity. The experiences gained during these times of solitude enable individuals to fulfill their divine mission and make a positive impact on their communities. Far from leaving individuals broken, isolation strengthens them, enabling them to lead with wisdom and integrity. Moreover, isolation often gives individuals the clarity to see their divine purpose more clearly. In the quiet of solitude, the distractions of the world fade away, and one can hear the voice of God with greater clarity, gaining insight into the future and the responsibilities they will undertake. Spiritual growth during isolation. One of the most significant benefits of divine isolation is the opportunity for spiritual growth. During times of isolation, individuals are encouraged to reflect on their lives, reevaluate their priorities, and deepen their relationship with God. This is a time for self-reflection, renewal, and clarity of purpose. Additionally, isolation strengthens faith. It is during these solitary moments that individuals experience deep spiritual encounters, moments when they can feel the presence of God more intimately and begin to trust in His guidance more fully. These experiences lead to profound spiritual transformation, aligning the individual's heart and mind with God's will. Signs of divine isolation. How can you tell if you are in a season of divine isolation? There are several signs to look for. One of the most common signs is a sense of loss of integration. You may feel disconnected from the environments or people that once brought you comfort and fulfillment. This can feel unsettling, but it is often a sign that God is preparing you for something greater. Another sign is the presence of unexpected obstacles. These challenges may seem overwhelming at first, but they are often part of the process by which God reshapes your life. These trials are designed to push you beyond your limits and prepare you for the next phase of your journey. Embracing isolation rather than seeing isolation as a curse, it is important to embrace it as a divine opportunity. Isolation is a chance for self-reflection, spiritual renewal, and preparation for future responsibilities. It is during these times of solitude that individuals are most vulnerable to divine transformation, shedding old patterns and becoming more attuned to their divine calling. When the time of isolation ends, the individual emerges transformed, ready to take on new challenges, step into leadership roles, and fulfill their divine purpose. The return from isolation is marked by a renewed sense of clarity, confidence, and mission. Key messages: divine isolation is not a punishment. It is a divine strategy for transformation. Through isolation, individuals are prepared for greater purposes, refined in character, and equipped to fulfill their spiritual missions. It is a time for introspection, growth, and spiritual renewal. Far from being a sign of abandonment, isolation is an opportunity for divine elevation, preparing individuals to rise to new heights of leadership and influence.